Look at any major Chinese city today, and you see a hyper-modern, deeply interconnected superpower. But beneath the surface of the glass and steel lies an invisible grid that completely severs the domestic reality of 1.4 billion people from the observation of the outside world. This isolation is the deliberate result of the Golden Shield Project, a sprawling digital architecture whose most infamous component is known as the Great Firewall. This diagram illustrates the sheer scale of the blockade. According to data from Freedom House, the firewall cuts off access to over 100,000 global domains. If you are inside the country, platforms like Wikipedia, international news outlets, and Western social media simply do not exist. To achieve this, the firewall relies on active intervention. It uses deep packet inspection to rip open and examine individual pieces of data as they move across the network. If the system detects banned keywords, it terminates the connection or uses bandwidth throttling to aggressively slow the transfer down until the site times out entirely. But code alone cannot police human conversation. The state employs an estimated 2 million public opinion analysts. These workers manually monitor chat rooms, scrub social media feeds, and crush the organic spread of unsanctioned ideas before they can gain traction. Because of this dual approach of automated filtering and manual enforcement, Freedom House scores China a 9 out of 100 for internet freedom, placing it at the absolute bottom of global rankings, alongside the worst offenders on the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index. The Great Firewall operates as a comprehensive sovereign digital border, built specifically to dictate the boundaries of a population's reality. The origin of this massive undertaking traces back to the spring of 1989. In Tiananmen Square, massive pro-democracy protests paralyzed the capital, ending only when the military mobilized armored personnel carriers against its own citizens. The Chinese Communist Party survived the uprising, but it absorbed a terrifying lesson. The protests proved that unchecked ideas and the free exchange of information pose a lethal ideological threat to a single-party state. To maintain control without a democratic mandate, the party relies on a political theory known as performance legitimacy. This requires the government to justify its absolute monopoly on power by consistently delivering flawless, tangible results for the public. For decades, that performance rested on two non-negotiable pillars: delivering relentless economic growth and maintaining absolute social stability. Today, President Xi Jinping enforces a strict doctrine of internet sovereignty. Under his leadership, the law dictates that all digital media and information must align with the party's will, projecting an image of continuous, unbroken success. When the state's right to rule depends entirely on an illusion of perfection, controlling the narrative becomes the load-bearing pillar holding up the entire government. The vulnerability of performance legitimacy is obvious. When reality falls short of perfection, the facts themselves become enemies of the state. We see this clearly in how the state manages economic anxiety. As youth unemployment skyrockets and GDP data becomes increasingly disputed, when high-profile billionaires offer even mild criticism of the financial system, they frequently vanish from public discourse entirely. This erasure is even more severe regarding human rights. The state actively scrubs any mention of the mass surveillance and re-education camp network targeting millions of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region, creating an enforced silence around the policy. During the chaotic end of the zero-COVID policy, citizens grew so frustrated by automated censors deleting their complaints that they took to the streets holding up blank sheets of white paper. They protested the government's failures without using a single word the algorithms could flag. Exposing these realities carries severe consequences. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, China consistently ranks as the world's leading jailer of reporters and bloggers. Activists like Nobel laureate Liu Xiaobo have paid with their freedom for attempting to document the truth. By scrubbing internal dissent and erasing evidence of crisis, the Great Firewall protects the state's domestic image from its own citizens, staving off the collapse of performance legitimacy. Keeping that illusion intact requires massive effort. Every day, millions of citizens engage in a sophisticated cat-and-mouse game, using virtual private networks, finding clever homonyms and coded slang, finding new ways to slip past the censors. Now, this highly centralized architecture faces threats from the outside. The sudden proliferation of decentralized satellite internet and the rapid advancement of generative AI offer new, unpredictable methods of communication that are incredibly difficult to corral. As the global flow of information becomes faster and more decentralized, the Chinese Communist Party's survival relies less on how high they can build their digital wall and more on whether a 20th century strategy of total control can withstand 21st century technology.